Hey everyone, Life Coach Carisa here. Do you ever feel like you're parenting on autopilot, saying things or reacting in ways that sound eerily familiar to your parents or caregivers? Well, this month I'm focusing on motherhood and family dynamics, and today I'm going to tackle unlearning what we were taught, parenting without guilt and fear. And we're going to explore how those inherited parenting styles impact how we raise our kids, how we interact in our families, and more importantly, how to break the generational cycles while still honoring your family values. So stick around because this conversation could change how you see your parenting journey forever. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me. This month, my theme is all about motherhood and family dynamics. And today's video is titled Unlearning What We Were Taught, Parenting Without Guilt and Fear. Have you ever found yourself saying something to your child or reacting in a certain way, and in that moment, a little voice inside your head says, "Wow, that sounds exactly like my mom," or "That's just like something my dad would have done." Maybe you even swore, like I did as a teenager, that you would never parent that way, only to find yourself repeating those very same patterns. Well, you are not alone because some common feelings here are control, anxiety, and fear. Essentially, we end up parenting not from our own intention, but from an inherited blueprint, right? So, I want to talk about identifying these inherited parenting styles. Just like I've shared in previous videos, how my parents and my grandmother's work ethic subtly shaped my own approach to productivity, our family of origin profoundly influences our parenting. It's often subconscious. Some of the most common ways we adopt these inherited styles include reacting instead of responding, projecting our own fears and insecurities onto our children. Do you hear me on that one? I did that a lot. Overcompensating for what we felt we lacked. That one was a big one for me too. And repeating old scripts around discipline. Why does this happen? Because it's all we know. It's what we grew up with. We tend to refer back to what's familiar, even if it didn't feel right to us at the time. We have a way of forgetting the impression that that behavior made on us. In my own life, I recognized that my father was very controlling, and I noticed I was becoming the same way with my children, trying to script and control their lives. And I also carried a story that I was never good enough to appease my father's standards. So I was constantly trying to make up for that narrative as a grown adult. And so I was, in a way, like living through my children, trying to make them better than me and that I was, so that I could feel like I was a good parent, a good person after all. But there is an impact, right? There's an impact that comes from the guilt or the fear. Many parents operate from a place of guilt or fear, guilt that they're not doing enough, or fear that they'll mess up their kids. Have you ever said that? I don't want to mess up my kids. This often will tie into that overcompensating aspect because we don't want to mess up our kids the way that we recognize some things were done in our own lives. So we'll swing so far in the opposite direction that we don't show up in a way that truly feels authentic to us. For example, because I had a disconnected and unhealthy relationship with my own father, I found myself overcompensating and I was trying to make my children's lives amazing and perfect. And in reality, I wasn't doing that at all. These patterns can be extremely difficult to break because they're so deeply ingrained in us. We have years of programming where this is our normal, and we don't have anyone challenging us, telling us that maybe this isn't normal or maybe it's not a healthy way to parent. You're really going against everything that you were raised knowing. We're wired to respect and honor our parents. So often, even dysfunction becomes so normal that it's hard to break away from. So it really requires awareness and then reframing and retraining to be able to drop those old programs and create new ones. And it really does truly help to have someone outside of you pointing this out to you. So I want to talk a little bit about how we honor those family values while breaking cycles, right? Because there's that crucial tension. How do we break the generational cycles that no longer serve us while still honoring the positive values and traditions that maybe our families instilled in us. And I've had tremendous experience with this because, for example, through getting clarity around my own programming, I was able to drop into more understanding. And I recognized that despite the dysfunctional relationship I had with my father, there were traits that I received from him that were good for me. I had a good work ethic. I had determination. I had grit. And I had a desire to continually improve my life. And once I was able to turn that drive from just being an overworking individual into a determination for uncovering my own programs that were no longer serving me, it became like incredibly valuable, right? So a lot of those traits that my father possessed that were ingrained in me, I actually found a way to help them use them to serve me now, right? When I use them in a way that aligns with where I'm wanting to go, that's the magic, right? And I don't believe that we need to completely overwrite everything that we were given from our parents and say that it's all bad. But I do think that we need to have the awareness and the understanding that parts of our programming are, in fact, not healthy for us. We need to decide what a healthy life looks like for us individually and then align our beliefs and our behaviors with that, not just blindly follow what we have been shown all those years, right? So really ask yourself, what are the things that are most important to me in my life? Then make sure your behavior aligns with that. This is a way to honor and separate it from your upbringing. We are not our parents. We are different people with different needs and motivations, and we need to recognize that. I had a big aha moment, right? And you may have already, or maybe one is yet to come, but one of my biggest aha moments was a very specific detail about the way that I was interacting with my teenage son years ago. In fact, I wrote about this in my book, Why Am I Like This? When I was younger, my father would be in a difficult conversation with me, disciplining me, and he would often have a smile on his face. And I could never make sense of it or understand how he could be smiling when we were in a moment of tension. And it always deeply upset me and confused me. I hated it. I probably thought I'll never treat my children this way. Now, years later, there were numerous times my son would ask me why I was smiling when we were in the midst of an argument. And I denied it at first, but he was right. I was doing the exact same thing that was done to me. And I was not consciously choosing, and I'm telling you, I was not thinking about, I'm going to smile right now. It was absolutely programming. It was not the way I wanted to show up. And this confusing and negative way that I was interacting with my children was one of my bigger wake-up calls that I was now getting to the point where I knew I was creating some unhealthy patterns in them that they would now one day have to work on to overwrite, right? That was my aha moment. I have got to figure this out. I have got to change this. And that's when I began on the journey of recognizing my own programming, starting to separate me from the programming. So I want to give you a couple practical steps of how you reclaim your parenting style, right? How do we begin to unlearn these unhelpful inherited patterns and move towards parenting without all that guilt and fear and control? And it really starts with an intentional action and a shift in mindset. Number one, pause and notice the pattern. When you feel triggered, pause in the moment and ask yourself, is this response coming from intention or from autopilot? That split-second awareness really creates space between reaction and a choice, and that is your doorway to change. And number two, choose one pattern to shift. We can't fix everything at once, so pick one inherited programming pattern, like yelling, people-pleasing, emotional shutdown, or control, and then ask yourself, what would I have needed instead as a child? What would I have needed instead as a child? And now you can practice giving that to your child and to yourself. So beyond specific actions, I think a fundamental mindset shift that I believe parents need to make is to go from perfection to presence. It is far more important to build a solid foundation with our children so that they want to communicate with us as they grow and they evolve and they go through difficult times. Good parenting isn't about getting it right all the time. It's about being present, being curious, listening to our family, and being willing to grow beyond some of our staunch beliefs That if we really dig at them and see where they're coming from, do we believe them? Are they ours, right? That's that question. So, a great question to pause and ask yourself is, what am I afraid of? What would happen if I parented differently? And then, more importantly, what kind of relationship do I want to build with my child long term? Because what you choose now will set up the foundation for what you have in the future. I think there is an amazing opportunity that awaits you on the other side of this journey. And that's having a child who wants to talk with you about anything and who doesn't feel the fear or judgment of what they share. I have the most amazing relationship with my two children now, ages 23 and 16, and I cannot tell you how valuable what I have cultivated is. They are going to face challenges in life, and the reality is, I would love to be able to have a seat at the table so that my wisdom and my input have a place. When I break that connection with them through judgment, perfection, or control, I no longer have a seat at the table to even make an impact. I will love my children no matter what they face, and they now know that I have the emotional bandwidth to be present for whatever they are going through. It doesn't mean I've given away everything that I believe. I have reconnected with what I believe, and I own that as my own. So start by observing where friction arises in your home, with your spouse or with your children, and then thoughtfully unpack the origins of those ingrained patterns. This process holds the power to change your family life for the better. It has absolutely transformed mine. I wouldn't trade it for anything. So I hope you'll take some time to look at this closer. All right, everyone. I hope that video gave you some powerful insights and actionable steps. Please remember to click that subscribe and hit that notification bell so you will be the first to know when my next video is released. And if you want a deeper dive in understanding these ingrained patterns and rewriting your narrative, please check out my book, Why Am I Like This? You can find it on Amazon. And I will see you next time. Have a great day.